Hello guys, welcome to Ben 10 What Ifs. So in this video, we will see, what if Ben 10 discovered the cosmic Omnitrix and gathered the Harem of Eunice, Frightwig, Sunny and Helen. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Blank. Chapter 1. Cosmic Resonance. The desert night air crackled with electrical potential as Ben Tennyson crouched behind a weathered boulder. Eyes fixed on the pulsating anomaly hovering 3 feet above the sand. Tendrils of iridescent energy whipped outward from its core, casting prismatic shadows across the barren landscape. 5 years of plumber work after college had honed his instincts. Whatever this was, it didn't register as any known alien technology in the galaxy. Scan complete, his Omnitrix announced flatly. Unknown energy signature detected. Composition inconsistent with cataloged universal constants. Ben rolled his shoulders, feeling the familiar weight of experience settle across them. At 24, he'd outgrown the impulsive teenager who'd first discovered the Omnitrix. His angular features, now framed by close-cropped brown hair, remained composed despite the extraordinary phenomenon before him. Gwen should be seeing this, he muttered to himself, missing his cousin's analytical mind. But Gwen was off-world, diplomatic mission to Anodyne with Kevin as security. The usual team, scattered across the stars. The anomaly suddenly contracted, collapsing inward with a sound like reality itself being torn apart. Ben's instincts screamed danger. He slammed his palm against the Omnitrix dial. Jet Ray should get me clear of. The familiar transformation sequence initiated, but something was wrong. Instead of the expected genetic reconfiguration, the Omnitrix sparked violently. Cascading waves of emerald and azure energy engulfed his body, intermingling with the anomaly's prismatic discharge. Pain erupted through every cell, not the usual transformation sensation but something deeper, as though his very atoms were being rewritten. Through watering eyes, Ben watched in horror as the Omnitrix seemed to dissolve, its metallic components flowing like quicksilver across his skin, seeping into his flesh. System reconfiguration in progress. The Omnitrix's voice distorted, becoming simultaneously deeper and more harmonic, as though multiple voices spoke in perfect synchronization. Cosmic integration initiated. The desert vanished. Ben floated in an endless void filled with threads of light connecting countless realities. He glimpsed infinite versions of himself, some barely recognizable, others terrifyingly familiar. For one eternal moment, he existed everywhere and nowhere, his consciousness stretched across dimensions. Then reality snapped back into focus. Ben collapsed onto the cooling desert sand. Gasping for breath, the anomaly had vanished, leaving only a perfectly circular depression in the ground, the sand at its edges transformed to glass. What the hell was that? He managed between ragged breaths. Raising his trembling left arm, Ben stared in disbelief. Where the Omnitrix had been was now an intricate lattice of emerald and sapphire energy poles. Beneath his skin in complex geometric patterns. At its center, a circular dial remained, but transformed, no longer mechanical but seemingly composed of concentrated light and energy. Cosmic Omnitrix integration complete, announced the new voice, resonant and multifaceted. Calibrating to host physiology. Ben attempted to stand, only for his knees to buckle. His perception shifted wildly, one moment seeing the desert night, the next glimpsing fragmented visions of other places, other times. A massive crystalline city, a world consumed by flames, a figure composed of swirling temporal energy watching him through a tear in reality. Too much, he gasped, squeezing his eyes shut. Filter it, as if responding to his desperation, the patterns on his arm pulsed once, and the overwhelming sensory input dimmed to manageable levels. The desert night returned, though now Ben could perceive subtle energy fields he'd never noticed before, electromagnetic pulses from distant power lines, gravitational fluctuations. The quantum vibration of particles dancing through the air. His plumber badge chirped, startling him back to immediate concerns. Ben, come in. Rook's familiar voice crackled through the communication device. Sensors detected massive energy surge at your coordinates. Status report. Ben reached for the badge with a hand that no longer felt entirely his own. I'm here, Rook, he managed. Something's happened to the Omnitrix. I need transport, and maybe Bluka can drive. Medical team standing by, Rook responded, professional as always despite the audible concern. Transport locked on your coordinates. Prepare for extraction in 30 seconds. While waiting, Ben studied the transformed device merged with his arm. The familiar silhouettes representing his alien transformations appeared when he focused on the dial, but they were different, evolved, enhanced versions shimmering with potential. What have you become? He whispered. The Omnitrix pulsed once in response. I have adapted to accommodate multidimensional awareness. Your designation for this configuration is accurate, Cosmic Omnitrix. Before Ben could process this, the familiar sensation of teleportation enveloped him, whisking him away from the desert and depositing him in the sterile environment of Plumber Headquarters Medical Bay. The harsh lighting made him wince after the desert darkness. Medical technicians immediately surrounded him, scanning devices whirring. Rook pushed through them, orange eyes widening at the sight of Ben's transformed arm. By Bralada's moons, the Ravanagonder breathed. What happened? Some kind of space-time anomaly, Ben explained, allowing himself to be guided to an examination table. The Omnitrix, it changed. Merged with me somehow. Fascinating. A familiar feminine voice cut through the commotion. The medical team parted, revealing a slender blonde woman in a white lab coat, her green eyes fixed on Ben's arm with scientific curiosity. A complete integration of Galvan technology with human biology. Ben's breath caught in his throat. Eunice. She smiled, the expression warming her clinical demeanor. Hello, Ben. It's been a while. The last time he'd seen the Omnitrix had been years ago, when she was still finding her place in the universe after Azimuth had employed her as his assistant. Now she carried herself with confident purpose. Her formerly uncertain movements replaced by precise efficiency. You're working with the plumbers now? Ben asked, wincing as she gently took his arm, examining the pulsing patterns beneath his skin. Consultant, she clarified. I've been studying the integration of various technologies across species. Azimuth thought I might have unique insight, given my nature. A shadow of old insecurity flickered across her features before she refocused. Everyone out. I need to examine him without interference. Rook hesitated. Protocol dictates. This transcends your protocols, Eunice countered firmly. We're dealing with technology beyond current plumber understanding. Ben needs specialized attention. Something in her tone brooked no argument. Rook nodded reluctantly, herding the medical staff out. I will inform Magister Tennyson of the situation. When the doors sealed shut, leaving them alone, Eunice's professional mask softened slightly. You look terrible. Thanks. Ben managed a weak smile. You look different, more confident. 5 years changes people, even artificially created ones. She produced a scanner from her coat pocket. This will help filter out the extra-dimensional perceptual input while we talk. May I? At his nod, she placed the device against his temple. Immediate relief washed over him as the background awareness of multiple realities faded to a manageable hum. Better, she asked. Much. Ben exhaled slowly. So you know what's happening to me. Eunice's fingers traced the patterns on his arm with scientific precision, though her touch remained gentle. Not exactly, but I have theories. The Omnitrix was always more than just a transformation device. Azimuth built in capabilities that even he didn't fully explore. It called itself the Cosmic Omnitrix, Ben said. Said something about multidimensional awareness. Eunice nodded, unsurprised. The universe is more complex than most species realize. What we perceive is real. ITY is just one layer, one frequency in an infinite symphony of existence. She moved to a console, fingers flying across the interface. Holographic displays materialized, showing cellular scans of Ben's arm. The patterns beneath his skin appeared even more intricate in the detailed imagery. The original Omnitrix contained DNA samples from across the galaxy, she explained. This appears to contain something more, quantum signatures from across multiple dimensions. It's not just transforming your body anymore, it's expanding your consciousness. Ben fought against a wave of dizziness. So I'm what? Going crazy? No, Eunice said firmly. Your mind is adapting to perceive more of reality than humans naturally can. It's like, imagine spending your whole life seeing only black and white, and suddenly perceiving the full spectrum of color. Overwhelming at first, but ultimately an enhancement. The cosmic Omnitrix pulsed once, projecting a holographic display into the air between them, a complex mathematical equation that shifted and evolved as they watched. Multidimensional calibration proceeding, it announced. Host neural pathways adapting at acceptable parameters. Eunice studied the equation with obvious fascination. Incredible. It's reconfiguring your neural architecture to accommodate the expanded perception without damaging your consciousness. That's good, Ben ventured. Very good. It means you won't go insane. Her attempt at humor fell flat as alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Rook's voice came over the intercom. Security breach in Sector 7. All personnel on high alert. Ben was on his feet instantly, the soldier in him responding to the crisis. What's in Sector 7? The Dimensional Research Lab, Eunice replied, already moving toward the door. Where they're studying anomalies exactly like the one you encountered. They raced through the corridors, Ben noting with surprise that his typical post-transformation disorientation was absent. Instead, he felt hyper-aware, processing every detail around him with unprecedented clarity. When they reached Sector 7, they found chaos. The reinforced doors had been torn from their hinges, twisted into impossible shapes that seemed to curve through dimensions beyond the three visible ones. Inside, plumber agents fired containment beams at a swirling vortex that hovered in the center of the lab, consuming everything it touched. Fall back, Rook commanded, spotting Ben. The containment protocols have failed. Through his enhanced perception, Ben saw what the others couldn't. The vortex wasn't random. It moved with purpose, consuming specific pieces of technology while leaving others untouched. It's not an accident, he realized. Something's searching. As if responding to his words, the vortex suddenly shifted direction, hurtling directly toward him. Ben raised his arm instinctively, the cosmic Omnitrix flaring with intense light. Interdimensional incursion detected, it announced. Defensive protocols activated. A shield of emerald energy erupted from the device, intercepting the vortex. Where they met, reality itself seemed to warp and bend. Through the distortion, Ben glimpsed a figure, humanoid but wrong somehow, its movements too fluid, too precise, as though unbound by normal physics. Ben Tennyson, a voice echoed directly into his mind, bypassing his ears entirely. The cosmic awareness awakens, earlier than calculated, adjustments required. The vortex collapsed inward, taking the voice with it. As the energy dissipated, it revealed the devasta Cheon left behind. Laboratory equipment fused into impossible configurations, monitors displaying equations that shifted and changed without input. What was that? Rook demanded, helping a fallen agent to her feet. Ben stared at the space where the vortex had been, still seeing echoes of its passage through his enhanced perception. I think someone just introduced themselves. Before he could elaborate, a new disturbance erupted from the corridor outside. Shouts, energy weapon discharge, then silence. The remaining agents formed a defensive perimeter around the entrance, weapons raised. The attack came from an unexpected direction. The ceiling panels burst inward as sinuous, prehensile tendrils shot downward, wrapping around two agents and flinging them aside with casual strength. More tendrils followed, a writhing mass that resolved into a humanoid figure dropping gracefully to the floor. Well, said a voice Ben hadn't heard in years. Look who's at the center of another disaster. Frightwig stood before them, but not as Ben remembered her. The former circus performer and villain had changed dramatically. Her trademark hair, once her primary weapon, now moved with more precision and purpose. The wild mane had been tamed into intricate braids that still writhed with kinetic energy. Her outfit had evolved from circus performer to something more tactical, form-fitting. G-carbon fiber bodysuit with reinforced joints and utility pouches. Most striking was her face. The manic glee replaced by focused intensity, a thin scar running from her left temple to jaw hinting at hard years since their last encounter. Frightwig, Ben acknowledged, tensing for battle despite his disorientation. She rolled her eyes. It's Maya now, Maya Cortez. My circus name died with that life. Her hair tendrils remained active, hovering defensively. And before your blue friend shoots me, you might want to hear why I just broke into a plumber facility. Rook's proto-tool remained aimed steadily at her head. You have 15 seconds. Maya's expression remained unimpressed. The dimensional breach that just occurred. It's the 7th in 3 days. They're looking for something. Her eyes fixed on Ben's transformed arm. And I'm guessing they just found it. How do you know about the breaches? Eunice demanded. Because I've been tracking them. Maya reached slowly into one of her pouches, withdrawing a small device that projected a global hologram marked with pulsing red indicators. They started in remote locations: Siberia, the Sahara, the Mariana Trench. Each one getting closer to populated areas. Each one searching. Ben studied the projection, his enhanced perception instantly recognizing the pattern. They're not random. They're forming a spiral, converging here. Give the boy a prize, Maya said dryly. The question is, who or what is punching holes in reality, and what do they want with your fancy new watch? Rook reluctantly lowered his weapon. If what you say is true, why come to us? You have not exactly been an ally in the past. Something dark flickered across Maya's features. Let's just say I've seen what comes through those breaches. If they're after the Omnitrix, nobody's safe. Not even former enemies. The facility's lights suddenly flickered, then stabilized at half brightness. Emergency systems activated, bathing everything in pulsing red. Alert, announced the facility AI. Dimensional instability detected throughout structure. Quantum field integrity compromised. Emergency protocols initiated. The floor beneath them trembled, not like an earthquake but something more fundamental, as though reality itself had become uncertain of its configuration. We need to move, Ben decided, instinctively taking command. If these breaches are targeting me, staying here puts everyone at risk. Where exactly do you propose going? Maya asked. If they can tear holes between dimensions, geography seems a minor obstacle. The cosmic Omnitrix pulsed, projecting a three-dimensional map of the surrounding area. A single location pulsed with particular brightness, an abandoned observatory in the hills outside Bellwood. There, Ben pointed. The quantum interference patterns are weakest at that elevation. We'll have more time to figure this out. Eunice studied the projection with obvious scientific interest. The device is calculating dimensional stability parameters. Fascinating. I'll inform Magister Tennyson, Rook said. A full tactical team. No, Ben interrupted. More people means more potential casualties. This is my responsibility. He looked at Eunice and, surprisingly, Maya, I won't ask either of you to come. Maya's hair tendrils coiled like agitated snakes. You think I broke into a plumber facility for my health? I'm seeing this through. The cosmic Omnitrix represents a quantum leap in Galvan technology, Eunice added. Besides, you need someone who understands the science of what's happening to you. Ben nodded, strangely grateful for their determination. Rook, I need you to coordinate from here. Keep the plumbers ready but at a distance. If whatever's coming gets past us. The Ravanagander clearly wanted to object. But years of partnership had built trust. Very well, but I expect regular updates, and at the first sign that the situation exceeds your capabilities. You can bring in the cavalry, Ben agreed. Deal. They moved quickly through the facility, avoiding the main corridors where curious or concerned plumbers might delay them with questions. Maya's knowledge of ventilation systems proved surprisingly useful, guiding them through maintenance passages to a secondary vehicle bay. How exactly did you get so familiar with plumber headquarters? Ben asked as they approached a standard issue transport. I make it my business to know escape routes, she replied cryptically, her hair tendrils extending to manipulate the vehicle's security panel. Comes from years of being on everyone's most wanted list. Yet you're helping us now, Eunice observed, sliding into the passenger seat as Ben took the controls. Interesting career change. Maya's expression hardened. Let's Jew. Saints say I've seen what dimensional incursions can do to a planet. Even former villains need somewhere to live. The transport lifted smoothly, accelerating through the exit tunnel and emerging into the night sky above Bellwood. Ben piloted with surprising ease, his enhanced perception giving him perfect awareness of their surroundings. The observatory is 12 minutes at this speed, he noted. Bah. King the craft toward the distant hills. We may not have 12 minutes, Eunice warned, studying readings on a portable scanner. The dimensional instability is spreading outward from the plumber base. Reality itself is becoming malleable in its wake. As if confirming her assessment, the night sky above them rippled like disturbed water. Stars momentarily rearranged themselves into unfamiliar constellations before snapping back to their proper positions. In the city below, street lights flickered in cascading patterns as electrical systems struggled with fluctuating physical constants. "They're coming," Maya said quietly, her hair tendrils writhing with agitation. "The Void Architects." Ben shot her a sharp glance. "The what?" "It's what they call themselves. Or at least, that's how it translates in human language." Her eyes remained fixed on the distortion spreading across the sky. "They exist in the spaces between realities, studying the architecture of different dimensions. Usually just observers, but sometimes they decide certain elements don't fit their preferred design." "How do you know this?" Eunice asked, suspicion evident in her tone. Maya's hand unconsciously traced the scar along her jaw. "Because I've fought them before. 3 years ago in Madrid. They took everything from me." Before Ben could press for details, the cosmic Omnitrix flared with emerald light. "Dimensional breach imminent. Defensive protocols recommended." "Hold on," Ben called, abruptly changing course as the air before them tore open, revealing a swirling maelstrom of energy. Identical to what had attacked the plumber facility. He banked hard, narrowly avoiding the vortex, but a tendril of energy lashed out, striking the transport's engine housing. The craft lurched, alarms blaring as systems failed. "We're losing power," Eunice reported, fingers dancing across the control panel. "Conversion matrix destabilizing." "I can see that," Ben replied, fighting the controls as they plummeted toward the forested hills below. "Brace for impact." The moment before collision, Maya's hair whipped outward, wrapping around both Ben and Eunice, pulling them against her as her free tendrils anchored to the transport's frame. When they hit, her hair created a protective cocoon, absorbing much of the impact. They tumbled through underbrush and small trees before finally coming to rest in a small clearing. The transport lay in ruins around them, sparking and smoking in the darkness. "Everyone alive?" Ben asked, disentangling himself from Maya's hair. Eunice nodded, already checking her equipment. "Functional." That was impressive reflexes. The last was directed at Maya, who was retracting her hair with visible effort. "Don't mention it," she managed, a thin trickle of blood running from her nose. "Cushioning impact takes a lot out of me." Ben helped her to her feet, noting with concern how she swayed slightly. "You're hurt." "I'll manage." She wiped the blood away with the back of her hand. "The observatory should be about 2 miles north of here. We can make it on foot." The forest around them shimmered oddly in Ben's enhanced perception, trees occasionally phasing between different possible states. Animal life flickering with quantum uncertainty. Reality itself seemed increasingly tenuous. "We need to move quickly," he decided. "The dimensional instability is accelerating." "Agreed." Eunice shouldered her pack of equipment. "Lead the way." They set off through the darkened forest, Ben in front with Maya bringing up the rear, her hair tendrils extended in a defensive perimeter around them. The night was unnaturally silent. No insects chirping, no rustling of nocturnal animals. As if the natural world itself had retreated from the wrongness spreading through reality. "The observatory was abandoned after the university lost funding," Ben explained as they hiked. "My grandfather used to take me there as a kid. The main telescope is still functional, though. Why would the Omnitrix direct us there specifically?" Eunice wondered. "Elevation and isolation, primarily," Ben replied, the knowledge somehow available to him through his connection to the device. "But also because of the material composition. The dome is lined with a rare earth alloy that naturally dampens quantum fluctuations. The scientists never knew why their readings were so stable compared to other observatories." Maya gave him a skeptical look. "And you suddenly know this because..." Ben tapped his transformed arm. "The cosmic Omnitrix isn't just changing me physically. It's sharing information, somehow. Like having a library downloaded directly into my brain, but I only access the relevant books when needed." "Fascinating," Eunice murmured. "A true symbiotic relata, on-chip rather than merely a user interface." Their conversation halted as they emerged from the tree line, the observatory dome visible atop the hill before them. Even from a distance, Ben could see it was different, the metal surface rippling with faint iridescence in his enhanced vision, standing firm against the quantum instability affecting the surrounding area. "We're not alone," Maya warned, her hair tendrils suddenly rigid. "Someone's already there." Ben focused his perception, seeing what she had somehow sensed. A figure moved around the observatory's exterior, human-shaped but moving with unnatural precision. Even more concerning were the tears in reality that seemed to follow in its wake, small rifts opening and closing like wounds in the air itself. Is that one of them? The Void Architects? Ben asked. Maya shook her head, expression grim. No, that's something else. Something worse. Chronivore detected, the cosmic Omnitrix announced suddenly. Temporal Predator classification. Extreme danger. What's a chronivore? Eunice asked, already scanning with her equipment. A temporal parasite, Ben answered, the knowledge flowing into his consciousness. It consumes potential timelines, leaving only a single possible future, the one most beneficial to whoever controls it. They're often used as advanced scouts, Maya added grimly. Sent ahead to prepare reality for larger incursions. Ben studied the creature, calculating options. We need to reach the observatory before it completes whatever it's doing. I'll distract it while you two circle around to the main entrance. With what? Maya demanded. Your fancy light show isn't exactly combat ready yet. The cosmic Omnitrix pulsed once. Transformation capabilities online. Evolutionary potential unlocked. Ben Su. Eldent suppress a grin as the familiar silhouettes appeared in the holographic interface. I think I've got that covered. You might want to stand back. For the first time since the transformation, he deliberately activated the device. Selecting a familiar form, the energy cascaded over him, but unlike any previous transformation, he remained conscious throughout the process, aware of each cellular change, each quantum reconfiguration. Where Ben had stood moments before, a massive creature now towered, recognizable as Homungosaur, but evolved beyond any version he'd previously accessed. Crystal line plates covered the dinosaur-like form, pulsing with the same patterns as the Omnitrix had displayed on his human arm. Energy crackled between the plates, and when he moved, afterimages trailed behind him as though he existed in multiple temporal states simultaneously. Cosmic Homungosaur, he announced, his voice resonating at multiple frequencies simultaneously. This is incredible. I see potential attack patterns before they happen. Eunice stared in open scientific fascination. Complete quantum integration with the transformed state. The evolutionary potential has been fully realized. Even Maya looked impressed despite herself. Flashy. Let's hope it's as effective as it is pretty. Ben flexed massive crystalline hands, feeling power coursing through him unlike anything he'd experienced before. Get to the observatory. I'll handle our temporal friend. Without waiting for further discussion, he charged from the tree line, each thunderous step leaving glowing footprints in reality itself. The chronivore turned at his approach, its featureless face rippling like disturbed water. Anomaly detected, it said in a voice that seemed to come before it spoke, words reaching Ben's ears before they were uttered. Unscheduled transformation. Calculating response. Ben didn't give it time to calculate. He swung a massive fist, the crystalline plates along his arm flaring with energy. The chronivore moved with impossible speed, seemingly shifting between moments in time rather than physically dodging. Predictive calculation failure, it announced, sounding almost confused. Subject exists across multiple probability waves simultaneously. That's right, Ben growled, adjusting his attack pattern based on the quantum probabilities he could now perceive. I'm everywhere you're going to be. This time when he struck, his fist connected solidly. The impact sent the chronivore flying backward, its body briefly separating into multiple temporal states before reconverging against the observatory wall. From the corner of his eye, Ben saw Eunice and Maya successfully reaching the main entrance, slipping inside while the creature was distracted. Good. Now he just needed to keep this thing occupied long enough for them to secure whatever they needed inside. The chronivore recovered quickly, its form rippling as it adapted to his attack pattern. Temporal displacement initiated, it announced. The air around Ben suddenly thickened, time itself becoming viscous and resistant to movement. He felt himself slowing, caught in a temporal distortion field that made each action require enormous effort. Trying to put me in slow motion, he grunted, fighting against the effect. Not going to work. Drawing on the cosmic Omnitrix's power, Ben focused his consciousness across multiple temporal states simultaneously. If he couldn't move quickly in this moment, he would exist across several moments at once. His form blurred, afterimages solidifying into semi-independent duplicates that attacked from different temporal angles. The chronivore recoiled, its featureless face displaying what might have been surprise. Error. Subject manipulating temporal framework without authorized parameters. I'm just full of surprises, Ben replied, his multiple temporal aspects speaking in perfect unison as they converged on the creature. And you're out of time. The combined impact of his attacks from multiple temporal vectors shattered the chronovore's cohesion. It fractured like broken glass, each shard showing a different potential version of the Crete. You were before dissolving into particles of light that faded into the night air. As it disappeared, the temporal distortion field collapsed. Ben's duplicate aspects reintegrated into his main form, leaving him momentarily disoriented from the experience of perceiving reality from multiple temporal perspectives simultaneously. Chronivore neutralized, the Omnitrix announced. Temporal stability temporarily restored to immediate vicinity. Temporarily being the operative word, Ben muttered, turning toward the observatory. The massive dome loomed above him, its metal surface now visibly rippling WITH energy patterns that matched those flowing across his transformed body. Whatever connection the Omnitrix had detected was growing stronger. He needed to get inside. Reverting to human form with a flash of emerald light, Ben felt the strange dual awareness settle back into his consciousness, the ability to perceive multiple dimensional layers simultaneously, filtered just enough to prevent overwhelming his human brain. He jogged to the entrance where Maya and Eunice had disappeared, finding the heavy metal door torn from its hinges, hair-like indentations marking where Maya had forced it open. Inside, the observatory was a single vast chamber dominated by the massive telescope mechanism pointed skyward through the retractable dome. Decades of abandonment had left dust and cobwebs everywhere, though curious clear patches suggested recent activity before their arrival. Eunice, Maya, Ben called, his voice echoing through the cavernous space. Over here, Eunice's voice replied from near the telescope's base. You need to see this. Ben followed her voice, finding both women studying a section of flooring that had been pulled away, revealing a hidden compartment beneath. Inside technology that was decidedly not human in origin, crystalline components connected by filaments of pulsing light, arranged in patterns that matched the designs now flowing beneath Ben's skin. What is this? He asked, though part of him already knew. A quantum anchor, Eunice explained, scanning the device with obvious fascination. Azimuth theorized about them, but I've never seen one actually constructed. It's designed to stabilize a specific point in space-time across multiple dimensions. Maya crouched beside the device, her hair tendrils hovering just above its surface as if sensing its energy. Someone put this here deliberately. Recently. The question is who, Ben said, kneeling to examine the technology more closely. As his transformed arm came near, the patterns beneath his skin synchronized with those flowing through the anchor, creating a harmonic resonance that hummed through the air. Connection established, the cosmic Omnitrix announced. Interdimensional message awaiting recipient authentication. Before Ben could respond, the anchor projected a holographic image into the air before them, a figure shrouded in flowing robes that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Parts of it shifting between different possible configurations. Ben Tennyson, the figure spoke, its voice containing multiple tonal layers. If you are receiving this message, the Chronarch's agents have already begun their incursion into your reality. Who are you? Ben demanded. What's happening to me? The figure's hood shifted, revealing glimpses of a face that seemed both ancient and youthful simultaneously. I am the Wayfarer, last guardian of the cosmic concordance. And you, Ben Tennyson, have been chosen as this dimension's protector against what comes. The hologram expanded, showing a vast multidimensional landscape where countless realities existed side by side, separated by shimmering barriers of energy. At the edges, dark tendrils encroached, consuming entire dimensions as they advanced. The Chronarch seeks to collapse the multiverse into a single, controlled timeline, the Wayfarer continued. One where its power is absolute. The cosmic Omnitrix you now bear is one of the last defensive measures we could implement, a device capable of preserving dimensional diversity by anchoring evolutionary potential across multiple realities simultaneously. Eunice moved closer to the projection, scientific curiosity overriding caution. You modified the Omnitrix. How? Even Azimuth couldn't have predicted this functionality. The Wayfarer's image flickered briefly. Azimuth's genius stretched further than even he realized. The original Omnitrix contained the seeds of this potential. We merely accelerated what would have eventually occurred naturally. So I'm what? Your dimensional security system? Ben asked, unable to keep the edge from his voice. You are far more than that, the Wayfarer replied. You are the nexus point, the being whose CES will determine whether the multiverse continues in its glorious diversity or collapses into the Chronarch's singular vision. Maya crossed her arms skeptically. And you didn't think to ask first. Before drafting him into your interdimensional war. The Wayfarer's image turned toward her, seeming to truly notice her for the first time. Maya Cortez, your presence was unexpected in this timeline. The figure shifted again, addressing Ben directly. Choice has always been fundamental to your journey, Ben Tennyson. The cosmic Omnitrix can be removed if that is truly your desire. But know that without it, your dimension will fall to the Chronarch within days. Ben looked down at his transformed arm, watching the patterns flow beneath his skin. The power it offered was incredible, but so was the responsibility. How do I stop something that exists across dimensions? You are not alone in this fight, the Wayfarer assured him. Others will be drawn to the cosmic Omnitrix's energy, Ali's with abilities that complement your own. Together, you must locate the remaining quantum anchors placed throughout your world. Each will strengthen the dimensional barriers and provide tools against the Chronarch's agents. The hologram shifted again, displaying a global map with 5 pulsing points of light. This observatory contains the first anchor. The others await discovery. Eunice studied the map intently. These locations correspond to areas of unique geomagnetic properties. Clever, natural amplifiers for the anchor's effects. Time grows short, the Wayfarer warned, the hologram beginning to destabilize. The Chronarch senses our communication and moves to disrupt it. Remember, Ben Tennyson, the cosmic Omnitrix doesn't just transform your body, it transforms possibility itself. Use it wisely. The image flickered violently, then stabilized momentarily as the Wayfarer made one final statement: beware the one who walks between moments. The Chronarch's herald approaches, the one you will come to know as Tempest. Quote, with those ominous words, the hologram collapsed, leaving only the softly pulsing quantum anchor in its wake. The three of them stood in silence for a moment, processing the enormity of what they'd learned. Well, Maya finally said, as apocalyptic warnings go, that was remarkably specific. Ben couldn't help but laugh despite the situation. Yeah, usual. Why I just get cryptic hints and have to figure out the world-ending threat myself. Eunice was already connecting her equipment to the anchor, establishing data links. This technology is extraordinary. If I can analyze its structure, perhaps I can develop detection methods for locating the other anchors without having to rely on the Wayfarer's map. Good thinking, Ben nodded. Because I have feeling that map might be under constant change as reality fluctuates. As if confirming his suspicion, the observatory suddenly trembled, dust raining down from the dome above. Outside, the night sky flickered like a faulty transmission, stars blinking out momentarily before reappearing in slightly altered positions. The cosmic Omnitrix flared, dimensional incursion imminent, massive reality displacement detected. That doesn't sound good, Maya observed, her hair tendrils extending defensively. The air at the center of the observatory twisted inward, reality folding upon itself until a perfectly circular portal opened. Edges burning with temporal energy. Through it stepped a figure that caused all three of them to tense in preparation for battle. It appeared humanoid at first glance, tall, and lean with silvery skin that reflected the observatory's dim light. But closer inspection revealed subtle wrongness, joints that bent in impossible directions, fingers too long and numerous, CE composed of shifting temporal echoes rather than fixed features. Ben Tennyson, it spoke, voice resonating both forwards and backwards in time, words reaching them before they were spoken while echoes lingered long after. I am Tempest, herald of the Chronarch. You have been deemed a temporal anomaly requiring correction. Ben stepped forward, placing himself between the entity and his companions. Sorry, not interested in being corrected. Your boss is trying to destroy the multiverse, and I'm not going to let that happen. Tempest tilted its head at an angle that should have been anatomically impossible. Incorrect. The chronarch brings order to chaos. One perfect timeline instead of infinite flawed variations. Its gaze fixed on Ben's transformed arm. The device you bear perpetuates dimensional disorder. Surrender it, and your timeline will be preserved in the new singular reality. Hard pass, Ben replied, activating the Omnitrix interface. I like having choices, and I'm guessing everyone across the multiverse feels the same way. Tempest sighed, a sound like time itself unwinding. Resistance was anticipated, unfortunate but accounted for. The Herald raised a hand, temper. Al energy coalescing around its elongated fingers. Before it could release whatever attack it was forming, Maya's hair tendrils shot forward with incredible speed, wrapping around its arm and yanking it off balance. I've been waiting years to fight one of you properly, she growled, additional tendrils whipping forward to ensnare Tempest more completely. The Herald's form blurred, shifting between temporal states to escape Maya's grasp. The circus anomaly, it identified her. Your interference has been noted across multiple timelines. A persistent irritant. Glad to hear I've made an impression, Maya replied, adapting her attack pattern as Tempest phased through her restraints. Her hair moved with increasing speed and precision, forcing the Herald to constantly shift its temporal position. Eunice worked frantically at the quantum anchor. I'm attempting to stabilize local reality, she called to Ben. If I can amplify the anchor's effect, it should prevent Tempest from phase shifting. Buy her time, Ben called to Maya, selecting a transformation. I'll handle our time-traveling friend. The cosmic Omnitrix flared, energy washing over him as he transformed. This time he chose clockwork, but like Homungosaur before, the form had evolved dramatically. The mechanical body now incorporated flowing crystalline components that pulsed with temporal energy. The key-like protrusion on his head had expanded into a crown-like structure that rotated continuously, scanning different temporal frequencies. Cosmic clockwork, Ben announced, his voice reverberating across multiple timelines simultaneously. Let's see who really controls time around here. Tempest actually paused, its shifting features registering something close to surprise. Chronosapian technology integrated with the cosmic Omnitrix. This exceeds predicted parameters. Ben didn't waste time responding. He focused his enhanced temporal awareness, projecting a field of controlled time around Tempest. Within the field, he could see every possible move the Herald might make across thousands of potential timelines. You exist across multiple temporal states, Ben observed, beginning to narrow the possibilities. But I can see them all. Gradually, he collapsed the quantum potential, forcing Tempest into a single temporal position, making it fully present in this moment and unable to phase between states. The Herald struggled against the constraint, its form fluctuating violently as it attempted to break free. Impossible, it hissed. No being of linear existence should possess this capability. I'm full of surprises, Ben replied, maintaining the temporal field with increasing strain. Eunice, whatever you're doing, hurry. Eunice's fingers flew across her interface, the quantum anchor pulsing with increasing brightness. Almost there. The anchor is synchronizing with the cosmic Omnitrix's frequency. Maya continued her assault, her hair tendrils now able to gain purchase on Tempest as it became locked into a single temporal state. She bound its limbs with brutal efficiency, using leverage to force the Herald to its knees. Not so intimidating when you can't slip between moments, are you? She taunted, tightening her grip as it struggled. Tempest's eyes fixed on Ben, burning with cold fury. This accomplishes nothing. I am merely the first. The chronarch has already initiated reality collapse. Say across 17 dimensions adjacent to yours. The process cannot be stopped. We'll see about that, Ben replied, nodding to Eunice. Now, Eunice activated the fully synchronized anchor. A pulse of energy erupted outward, washing over all of them. Where it touched Tempest, the Herald's form began to destabilize, edges blurring as its connection to this reality weakened. What have you done? It demanded, genuine alarm in its multi-layered voice. Reconfigured the quantum anchor to reject your specific temporal signature, Eunice explained with scientific satisfaction. This reality is now inhospitable to your particular dimensional frequency. Tempest thrashed against Maya's restraints, its form increasingly transparent. This changes nothing. The chronarch will send others. Your reality will be corrected. Then we'll be ready, Ben promised, maintaining the temporal field until Tempest faded completely, banished back to whatever dimension it had originated from. As the herald vanished, Ben reverted to human form. Stumbling slightly from the exertion, Maya retracted her hair tendrils, wincing as she worked out the tension from maintaining such precise control. That, she said, breathing heavily, was immensely satisfying. Eunice was already gathering data from her instruments. Fascinating. The quantum anchor actually rewrote local dimensional parameters, essentially changing the address of our reality so the Chronarch's forces can't find it as easily. Will that keep them away permanently? Ben asked, already suspecting the answer. No, Eunice admitted, but it buys us time. With each anchor we activate, we strengthen the dimensional barriers and make incursions more difficult. Ben nodded, looking between his two unlikely allies. Then we find the other anchors. Before the Chronarch figures out our new address. Maya stretched, her hair forming complex patterns above her head before settling back into more controlled braids. Road trip across dimensions to save reality itself. Sure, why not? Not like I had other plans this weekend. The question is where to start, Eunice said, studying the data on her scanner. The Wayfarer's map showed 5 additional anchors. But with reality in flux, those locations might be approximate at best. Ben looked down at his transformed arm, the patterns flowing with purpose beneath his skin. I think the cosmic Omnitrix can guide us. It seems to have an awareness of the anchors, quantum signatures. As if responding to his words, the device projected a holographic display showing their current location and a pulsing indicator approximately 2,000 miles to the east. Europe, Eunice identified, specifically, the Black Forest region of Germany. What's in Germany? Maya asked. According to this, Ben said, studying the information flowing into his consciousness from the Omnitrix, a quantum anchor hidden beneath an ancient astronomical site. One that's been monitoring dimensional barriers since the Middle Ages. Well then, Maya said with a hint of her old theatrical flair, Germany it is. Should we steal a plumber ship, or were you planning to fly us there as one of your aliens? Ben couldn't help but smile despite the gravity of their situation. I think Grandpa Max might be convinced to lend us proper transportation once we explain we're trying to save all of reality. A compelling argument, Eunice agreed. Packing her equipment. Though perhaps we should omit the part about working with a former criminal. Maya shrugged, unconcerned. Former being the operative word. Besides, saving the multiverse should count as community service, right? As they prepared to leave the observatory, Ben paused, looking up through the dome at the stars above. They no longer flickered with dimensional instability. The quantum anchor's effect had stabilized local reality for now. But he could still perceive the larger pattern through his enhanced awareness, the subtle wrongness spreading upward as the Chronarch's forces continued their work elsewhere. This was just the beginning of something much larger. The cosmic Omnitrix pulsed gently against his skin, as if confirming his thoughts. Whatever was coming, whatever responsibility he'd been given, he wasn't facing it alone. He glanced at Eunice methodically organizing her equipment, at Maya casually using her hair tendrils to gather our scattered tools, unlikely allies brought together by circumstances none of them could have predicted. Ready? He asked them. Eunice nodded, shouldering her pack. To save reality itself. As ready as one can be. Born ready, Maya replied with a confident smirk. Let's go be heroes. Or in my case, slightly less villainous. Together, they stepped out of the observatory into the night, the first team of what Ben somehow knew would need to grow larger to face what was coming. The cosmic Omnitrix hummed with potential against his skin, a constant reminder of the power and the responsibility he now carried. Whatever the Chronarch was, whatever plans it had for reality itself, Ben Tennyson and his unlikely allies would be there to stop it. Some things never changed, even across dimensions. Chapter 2. Convergent Paths. The Black Forest stretched beneath them like a dark ocean, ancient pines swaying in pre-dawn winds. Ben stood at the transport ship's viewport, watching Germany's landscape materialize through dissipating clouds. 3 days had passed since their encounter with Tempest at the observatory, 3 days of preparation, explanation, and Max Tennyson's reluctant approval of their unorthodox mission. ETA 5 minutes. Rook announced from the pilot's seat, blue fingers dancing across the controls with practiced precision. Sensors detect no unusual activity at the coordinates. Ben nodded, the patterns beneath his skin pulsing with increasing intensity as they neared their destination. The cosmic Omnitrix had been relatively quiet during their transatlantic journey, as if conserving energy for what lay ahead. That's what worries me, he replied, turning from the viewport. After what happened in Bellwood, the Chronarch's forces should be all over this place. Eunice looked up from her workstation where she'd spent the flight analyzing data from the first quantum anchor. Perhaps the temporal disruption we caused bought us more time than we realized. By rejecting Tempest's dimensional frequency, we may have temporarily blinded them to our movements. Are they waiting for us? Maya suggested from her corner of the cabin, where she sat cross-legged, her prehé NSILE hair braiding and unbraiding itself in complex patterns, an exercise she'd explained helped her maintain fine control. Setting a trap at the very place they know we'll go. Either way, Ben concluded, we need that anchor. The transport descended through a layer of morning mist, settling in a small clearing surrounded by towering evergreens. According to historical records Eunice had uncovered, they were less than a mile from the Heidenturm, a medieval astronomical tower used by local monks to track celestial movements long before modern science understood their significance. Remember, Rook cautioned as they prepared to disembark, I cannot remain. The diplomatic summit in Geneva requires plumber security presence, and Magister Tennyson was explicit that this mission remain officially unauthorized. Ben clasped his partner's shoulder. We'll be fine. Maintain radio silence unless absolutely necessary. We don't know if the Chronarch's forces can track conventional communications. Rook nodded, concern evident in his orange eyes. Be careful, Ben. This enemy operates beyond conventional parameters. So do we, Ben replied with a confidence he didn't entirely feel. As they exited the transport, the pre-dawn forest enveloped them in damp silence. Ancient trees towered overhead, filtering the first hints of morning light through a cathedral-like canopy. The air carried the sharp scent of pine and decomposing leaves, clean and primordial. Maya inhaled deeply, her hair tendrils extending slightly as if tasting the air. I'd forgotten what real wilderness smells like, she admitted. Spain has forests, but nothing like this. The Black Forest has remained largely unchanged for thousands of years, Eunice explained, consulting her scanner. Which makes it perfect for a long-term quantum anchor. Minimal human development means minimal interference with dimensional frequencies. The transport rose silently behind them, quickly disappearing into the low cloud cover. They were on their own, a former hero, a synthetic life form, and a reformed villain, hunting for an interdimensional device that might save reality itself. Ben couldn't help but appreciate the absurdity. The Omnitrix is indicating the anchors located beneath the astronomical tower, he said, following the internal guidance that had grown stronger since their arrival. About half a mile northeast. They moved through the forest with practiced caution, Ben leading with Eunice in the middle and Maya bringing up the rear, her hair tendrils maintaining a constant perimeter scan. The morning mist clung to the forest floor, swirling around their ankles like spectral currents. This forest feels wrong, Maya noted after several minutes of silent progress. Not dangerous, just off. Ben had no CED it too, his enhanced perception detecting subtle anomalies in their surroundings. Trees that occasionally displayed quantum uncertainty, momentarily existing in multiple states simultaneously. Birds whose songs echoed slightly before they were uttered. Time and space felt thin here, as if the barriers between dimensions had already begun to fray. The anchor's influence, Eunice theorized, studying readings on her scanner. It's maintaining local dimensional stability, but the effort is creating quantum ripples, like stones dropped in still water. They emerged from the densest part of the forest into a small, mist-shrouded clearing. At its center stood the Heidenturm, a circular stone tower approximately 40 feet tall, its weathered gray surface covered with intricate astronomical carvings. A wooden door at its base hung partially open, warped by centuries of exposure. This is it. Maya sounded unimpressed. Somehow I expected something more alien. Appearances can be deceiving, Ben replied. Approaching the structure, through his enhanced perception, he could see energy patterns flowing through the ancient stones, a latticework of quantum signatures pulsing in perfect sync. Ronization with the patterns beneath his own skin. As they neared the entrance, the cosmic Omnitrix flared suddenly. Warning. Dimensional irregularity detected. Multiple timeline convergence in progress. Before Ben could respond, the air before the tower's entrance rippled violently. Reality folded inward, creating a distortion through which stepped a figure that made Ben freeze in surprised recognition. "Well, well, well," said a feminine voice that managed to sound both melodious and insufferably smug. "Look who finally decided to show up to the interdimensional crisis. Fashionably late as always, Benji." "Sonny," Ben managed, staring at his cousin in disbelief. The woman before them certainly resembled Sonny, the same facial features and confident posture Ben remembered from their occasional hostile family reunions. But the wild teenager had been replaced by someone more refined, more focused. Her long black hair now contained streaks of iridescent purple that seemed to shift and flow like liquid energy. She wore a fitted bodysuit of some unknown material that reflected light in impossible ways, adorned with symbols Ben recognized as Anodite script. Most striking were her eyes, where once they had been human. They now glowed with the unmistakable magenta energy of her Anodite heritage, suggesting she'd embraced that part of herself far more completely than Gwen ever had. Sue. Nee's luminous gaze flicked dismissively over Eunice and lingered with more interest on Maya before returning to Ben. "Surprised to see me? You shouldn't be. When reality itself starts unraveling, who else would show up but your favorite cousin?" "I thought Gwen was my favorite cousin," Ben replied automatically, falling into their old pattern of verbal sparring despite the circumstances. Sunny rolled her glowing eyes dramatically. "Gwen's busy playing diplomat with the Anodite elders, trying to convince them that humans are worth saving." "Boring." She flicked her wrist, creating a small spiral of energy that danced between her fingers. "I, on the other hand, decided to take a more direct approach." Eunice stepped forward cautiously. "You know about the dimensional crisis. The Chronarch." "Know about it." Sunny laughed, the sound echoing slightly before it should have. "Honey, the Anodites have been monitoring dimensional barriers since before humans figured out fire. We're energy beings. We notice when the fundamental fabric of reality starts developing holes." Maya's hair tendrils coiled defensively. "And we're supposed to trust you because..." Sunny eyed the animated hair with clear fascination. "Ooh, that's a neat trick. And you don't have to trust me, circus girl. But you might want to hear what I have to say before those void architects I've been tracking catch up with us." Ben's eyes narrowed. "You've been tracking them for weeks now." Sunny's expression grew momentarily serious, an unfamiliar look on her features. "They've been systematically destroying Anodite energy fields across 3 dimensions. Something about our connection to mana interferes with their boss's grand plan." The cosmic Omnitrix pulsed once. Anodite energy signature confirmed. Genetic relation verified. Sunny's eyes widened as she noticed the patterns flowing beneath Ben's skin for the first time. "Holy Verdona, what happened to your discount watch?" She moved closer, energy crackling around her fingers as she examined his arm. This is incredible. You're resonating across multiple dimensional frequencies simultaneously. It's called the cosmic Omnitrix," Ben explained, pulling his arm back slightly from her probing energy. "And it's apparently the key to stopping the Chronarch from collapsing the multiverse." Sunny whistled, the sound somehow carrying harmonic overtones impossible for human vocal cords. "No wonder the elders are in a panic. They sensed a dimensional nexus point forming but couldn't pinpoint its location." Her lips curved in a mischievous smile. "And it turns out to be my dorky cousin. The universe has a weird sense of humor. As fascinating as this family reunion is," Maya interrupted, her hair tendrils suddenly rigid with alertness, "we've got company." The forest around them had gone unnaturally still, the morning mist now swirling with purpose rather than drifting randomly. Shapes began to form within it, humanoid figures composed of fog and twisted light. Their movements jerky and unnatural. "Void architects," Sunny confirmed grimly, energy gathering around her hands. "They've been hunting me since I disrupted their operation in Prague." "The tower." Ben decided immediately. "We need to get to the anchor." They rushed toward the entrance, but the mist figures moved with impossible speed, converging from all directions. 3 materialized directly in their path, solidifying into more defined shapes. Tall, spindly beings with translucent skin through which complex geometric patterns flowed like liquid mathematics. Dimensional anomalies detected. One announced in a voice that resonated from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. Containment protocols initiated. The air around them thickened as the Void Architects manipulated local reality, creating a bubble of altered physics that slowed their movements. Ben felt as though he were trying to run through solidifying concrete, each step requiring exponentially more effort than the last. They're altering local time dilation. Eunice called out, her movements slowing dramatically, creating a temporal pocket. Sunny's eyes flared with magenta fire. Not today, geometry freaks. She thrust her hands outward, releasing a wave of pure anodite energy that disrupted the altered physics. The temporal pocket shattered like glass, shards of distorted time dissolving into the morning air. Get to the tower, Ben commanded, already activating the cosmic Omnitrix. Energy cascaded over him as he transformed into a being composed of crystalline structures and flowing plasma, an evolved version of Diamondhead that pulsed with the same patterns as the Omnitrix itself. Cosmic Diamondhead, he announced, his voice reverberating with crystalline harmonics. I'll hold them back. Maya's hair whipped forward, tendrils wrapping around Eunice's waist and physically launching the synthetic woman toward the tower entrance. Go, she shouted. Find the anchor. We'll handle the light show. Eunice sailed through the air with precision, landing gracefully at the tower's entrance before disappearing inside. Meanwhile, Maya turned to face the approaching Void Architects, her hair spreading into a lethal fan of writhing tendrils. I've been wanting to try this since Madrid, she growled, concentrating intensely. Her hair suddenly hardened, crystalline structures forming along each tendril like organic blades. Let's see how you like a haircut. Sunny raised an appreciative eyebrow. Impressive modification, circus girl. She hovered slightly above the ground, energy. Why crackling around her in complex patterns? Let me add some color. With a gesture, she infused Maya's crystallized hair with pulsing anodite energy, creating weapons that now disrupted dimensional frequencies on contact. Maya grinned fiercely, clearly enjoying the upgrade. Name's Maya, she corrected, launching her first attack at the nearest architect. Remember it when you're telling stories about how we saved reality. Ben charged forward, his crystalline body generating and launching projectiles that tracked the Void Architect's dimensional frequencies. Where they struck, the beings momentarily lost cohesion, their carefully maintained forms disrupting into component mathematical patterns. They're not fully materialized in our dimension, he realized, adapting his strategy. They exist partially in a tangential reality. Quote, which means physical attacks alone won't stop them, Sunny called back, weaving complex energy patterns that forced the architects further into material existence. We need to bind them to our dimensional frequency first. As they fought, Ben noticed something odd. The Void Architects weren't attacking with their full capability. They maintained the perimeter, preventing approach to the tower. But their offensive maneuvers seemed calculated to delay rather than destroy. They're stalling us, he called out to the others. This is a diversion. Inside the tower, Eunice moved quickly down a spiraling stone staircase that descended far deeper than the external structure suggested possible. The ancient steps, worn smooth by centuries of use, were carved with symbols that matched the patterns flowing from the cosmic Omnitrix, evidence that whoever built this place had knowledge of dimensional mechanics long before Earth's science recognized such concepts. The stairway opened into a circular chamber whose walls were lined with astronomical charts depicting not just Earth's night sky, but constellations impossible to see from any terrestrial vantage point. At the chamber's center stood a pedestal supporting a device similar to the quantum anchor they'd found at the observatory, but more elaborate, crystalline components arranged around a central core of pulsing energy. All contained within a protective field of shimmering force. Eunice approached cautiously, scanning the device with her equipment. Fascinating. This anchor is significantly more powerful than the first. And far older. It's been operating continuously for at least 700 years. As she studied the readouts, a shadow detached itself from the darkened corner of the chamber. And it will continue operating for 700 more, once properly calibrated, said a female voice with a distinctive accent. Eunice spun around, defensive systems activating automatically. A slender blue-skinned figure emerged from the shadows, a female Kinesolaran, though one who moved with deliberate grace rather than the characteristic speed of her species. She wore the distinctive uniform of a plumber diplomatic corps, modified to accommodate her physiology, with additional insignia indicating senior rank. Helen wheels, Eunice identified, relaxing slightly but maintaining readiness. Plumber Special Envoy. Helen inclined her head, tail swishing gently behind her. And you are Eunice, the evolved Omnitrix. Azimuth's records on you are quite fascinating. Her gaze shifted to the quantum anchor. As is this device, which appears connected to the dimensional disturbances affecting multiple worlds. Outside, the battle intensified as more void architects emerged from the morning mist. Ben, Maya, and Sunny fought with coordinated precision that belied their recent alliance, each adapting to complement the other's fighting styles. Sunny wove complex energy patterns that CED their opponents into material coherence, making them vulnerable to physical attack. Maya followed these openings with devastating strikes from her energized hair tendrils, severing the Mathematica L patterns that maintained the architect's forms. Ben provided both offense and defense, his crystalline body generating shields to protect his companions while launching precision attacks at critical junctures. Despite their effectiveness, they were gradually being pushed back toward the tower as more void architects materialized. We can't keep this up forever, Maya warned, her hair retracting slightly as fatigue began to show in her movements. There are too many. Sunny's energy output had also diminished, though her confident expression never wavered. Anodite energy isn't infinite in this dimension. I'm running on reserves here. Ben made a quick calculation, analyzing battle patterns through his enhanced perception. They're hurting us, trying to compact our defensive formation. He turned toward the tower entrance. We need to get inside and regroup with Eunice. As they began a fighting retreat toward the tower, a new disturbance rippled through reality. The air above the battlefield tore open in a perfect circle, edges burning with familiar temporal energy. Through this portal floated a figure they'd encountered before, Tempest, the Chronarch's herald. But something had changed about the entity. Its formerly silver skin now displayed fracture-like patterns, as though its very substance had been damaged by their previous encounter. Ben Tennyson, Tempest announced, voice echoing before and after it spoke. Your interference has been deemed significant. The entity surveyed the battlefield with clinical detachment. Adjustments to your timeline have been authorized at highest levels. The fighting paused as all attention focused on the herald's arrival. Even the void architects stilled, their fluid movements freezing as they awaited direction. Back for another beating, Ben called up to the hovering figure. Last time didn't work out so well for you. Tempest's damaged features arranged themselves into what might have been a smile. A temporary setback, that provided valuable data regarding your capabilities. The herald raised one elongated hand, temporal energy gathering around its fingers. This encounter will proceed differently. Before any of them could react, Tempest released a pulse of concentrated temporal energy directly at Ben. The attack moved faster than thought, striking before he could generate a defensive shield. The impact sent him flying backward, crystalline body slamming into the tower's stone wall with enough force to crack the ancient masonry. More concerning than the physical impact was the effect on his transformed state. Where the temporal energy had struck, his crystalline structure began to age rapidly, centuries of degradation occurring in seconds, causing portions to crumble into dust. Ben, Sunny shouted, I am. Immediately launching a counterattack of concentrated anodite energy at Tempest. The herald merely shifted slightly in temporal space, the attack passing harmlessly through where it had been a microsecond before. Maya moved with surprising speed, her hair tendrils extending to pull Ben from the crumbling wall before more of his form could degrade. The temporal attack is disrupting his transformation, she observed, setting him down behind the limited cover of a fallen tree. Can you reverse it? Ben focused on the cosmic Omnitrix's power, attempting to stabilize his form. The device pulsed erratically, struggling against the temporal disruption. Working on it, he managed, voice distorted as parts of his crystalline vocal structure degraded. Need time. Time is precisely what you lack, Tempest announced. Descending slowly toward them, another temporal attack forming between its hands. Your dimensional frequency will be corrected. Your quantum signature will be erased. The multiverse will achieve singular perfection. Inside the tower, Eunice and Helen had reached an uneasy détente, both recognizing larger priorities than jurisdictional disputes. The plumbers have been monitoring dimensional anomalies for months, Helen explained, moving with uncharacteristic deliberation for a Kinesolaran. But we lacked context until 3 days ago, when multiple secure facilities experienced similar breaches simultaneously. Eunice continued analyzing the quantum anchor, dividing her attention between the device and the conversation. And you traced the pattern here, to one of the anchor points. Helen nodded, tail swishing thoughtfully. The plumbers have ancient records referring to dimensional guardians who established monitoring stations on Earth centuries ago. This appears to be one of them. Her expression grew troubled. What concerns me is why these void architects want to destroy them. Before Eunice could respond, the tower shook violently, dust and small stones raining from the ceiling. The quantum anchor's energy field fluctuated momentarily before stabilizing. The others are in trouble, Eunice realized, gathering her equipment. We need to wait, Helen interrupted, moving to the anchor with surprising suddenness. This device isn't merely monitoring dimensional frequencies. It's actively maintaining them. Her tail twitched with sudden inspiration. Which means it can be reconfigured to reject hostile frequencies on a larger scale. Understanding dawned on Eunice's face. Like we did with the observatory anchor, but across a much wider radius. Helen nodded briskly. Precisely. But I'll need your help to recalibrate it. My knowledge of quantum mechanics is primarily theoretical. Outside, the situation had deteriorated rapidly. Sunny maintained a protective energy shield around them, but each impact from Tempest's temporal attacks caused it to weaken visibly. Maya had positioned herself before Ben, her energized hair tendrils intercepting smaller attacks. But fatigue showed in her increasingly labored movements. Ben himself had partially recovered, his crystalline form stabilizing as the cosmic Omnitrix fought against the temporal degradation. But he remained weakened, unable to launch an effective counterattack. Any brilliant ideas would be welcome right about now, Sunny grunted, reinforcing her shield as another temporal blast struck it. The magenta energy crackled dangerously, fracture lines spreading across its surface. Ben analyzed their options through his enhanced perception, calculating probability streams with the Omnitrix's help. We need to disrupt Tempest's temporal cohesion again. Force it into a single moment rather than existing across multiple. Great plan, Maya replied, wincing as a tendril intercepted a smaller attack. How exactly do we do that when we can barely keep ourselves alive? The answer came unexpectedly. A blur of blue streaked from the tower entrance, resolving into Helen wheels moving at full kinesolaran speed. She circled Tempest so rapidly that the air itself began to heat from friction, creating a vortex that disrupted the Herald's carefully maintained temporal field. Dimensional frequency detected, announced a new voice. Eunice, emerging from the tower with a modified version of her scanner. Calibrating rejection field now. Tempest immediately recognized the greater threat, abandoning its attack on Ben's group to target Eunice. Omnitrix anomaly, it identified. Attempting dimensional recalibration of local anchor. Intervention required. The Herald redirected its temporal energy, launching a concentrated blast at Eunice. Ben reacted instinctively, forcing his damaged crystalline form to its feet. With his remaining strength, he generated the largest shield he could manage, intercepting the attack mere inches from Eunice's position. The impact shattered his shield and sent him crashing to the ground, his transformation finally giving way. In a flash of emerald light, he reverted to human form. The patterns beneath his skin pulsing erratically as the cosmic Omnitrix struggled to recover from the temporal assault. Ben, multiple voices called out in alarm. Through blurred vision, Ben saw Sunny abandon her defensive position to launch a desperate attack at Tempest, raw anodite energy cascading from her hands in destructive waves. Maya's hair tendrils ended to pull Eunice to safety while Helen continued her high-speed assault, the combined efforts momentarily keeping the Herald off balance. But Tempest was adapting quickly, its damaged form shifting. To compensate for their attack patterns, it phased partially out of temporal alignment, becoming harder to target as it prepared another, larger attack. Fools, it said, voice echoing across multiple moments simultaneously. Your resistance only confirms the necessity of correction. Imperfect timelines must be culled. As Tempest gathered temporal energy for what would clearly be a devastating attack, Ben forced himself to his knees. Clutching his transformed arm, the cosmic Omnitrix pulsed weakly, still recovering from the previous assault. We need more time, he gasped, knowing they had cons at most before Tempest released its attack. Time, echoed a voice in his mind, the cosmic Omnitrix itself, communicating directly with his consciousness. Fundamental dimensional constant, malleable under specific conditions. Understanding flowed into Ben's awareness, not just knowledge but instinctual comprehension of temporal mechanics beyond anything he'd previously grasped. The Omnitrix wasn't just a transformation device. It was a tool for manipulating reality at its most fundamental level. "Everyone," he called out, his voice stronger as certainty filled him. "Get to the tower, now." Something in his tone brooked no argument. Maya immediately used her hair tendrils to propel herself toward the entrance, while Helen grabbed Eunice and accelerated to safety in a blur of motion. Only Sunny hesitated, maintaining her attack on Tempest to cover their retreat. "Sunny," Ben shouted, "trust me." With visible reluctance, his cousin abandoned her assault, flying backwards toward the two. Her entrance where the others had already disappeared inside. The moment she crossed the threshold, Ben raised his transformed arm toward the sky. "Cosmic Omnitrix," he commanded, focusing his will through the device. Temporal dilation field, maximum radius. The patterns beneath his skin flared with blinding intensity, emerald and sapphire energy erupting outward in a perfect sphere that engulfed the clearing. Within this field, time itself began to slow for everything except Ben, Tempest's attack decelerating until it hung suspended in the air, the Void Architects freezing in their fluid movements. Even the morning mist hanging motionless like a three-dimensional photograph. Ben alone remained capable of normal movement, though maintaining the field clearly cost him tremendous effort. "Sweet," beaded on his forehead as he staggered toward the tower entrance, each step requiring focused will to complete. Inside, his companions watched in astonishment through the open doorway as he created a bubble of altered time that left them unaffected within the tower's protection. "Impossible," Helen breathed, scientific training warring with the evidence before her eyes. "He's manipulating mental temporal mechanics without a technological interface." "Not impossible," Eunice corrected, studying readings on her scanner. "The cosmic Omnitrix has integrated with his biological systems at a quantum level. He's become the interface." Ben reached the threshold, practically falling through the entrance before releasing his hold on the temporal field. As his concentration broke, the energy sphere collapsed. Time resuming its normal flow outside. Tempest's attack discharged harmlessly against empty air, the Herald's damaged features registering something akin to confusion as it realized its target had vanished. "What did you just do?" Maya asked, helping Ben to a sitting position against the inner wall. "Localized temporal manipulation," he managed between labored breaths. "Slowed time outside while we remained in normal flow. Won't hold Tempest long, though. It exists partially outside conventional time. Then we need to activate the anchor immediately," Eunice decided, turning toward the stairway. "Helen and I have reconfigured it to generate a dimensional rejection field similar to what we created at the observatory, but significantly more powerful." They descended quickly to the underground chamber, Ben leaning heavily on Sunny's shoulder. Despite his weakened state, the patterns beneath his skin began to pulse more strongly as they approached the quantum anchor, resonating with its energy field. "The anchor recognizes the cosmic Omnitrix," Helen observed, monitoring the device's fluctuating energy patterns. "They're communicating at a quantum level. That's why the Wayfarer placed these anchors." Ben realized, straightening slightly as energy flowed between his arm and the device. "They're not just stabilizing reality, they're meant to work with the Omnitrix to amplify its effects." The anchor's protective field parted as Ben approached, allowing him to place his transformed arm directly against the crystalline core. Immediately, information flowed in to his consciousness, not just data but complete understanding of the anchor's purpose and capabilities. "It's more than we thought," he said, eyes widening as comprehension dawned. "This isn't just a monitoring station or dimensional stabilizer. It's a nexus point, a place where multiple realities naturally overlap. The monks who built this tower didn't choose this location randomly, they sensed the dimensional confluence. Which explains why the Chronarch wants to destroy it," Sunny concluded, her natural quick thinking cutting to the heart of the matter. "These natural overlap points resist forced convergence into a single timeline." Maya's hair tendrils coiled thoughtfully. "So these anchors are like interdimensional support beams, keeping the multiverse from collapsing." "A simplified but accurate metaphor," Helen agreed. tail swishing with scientific excitement. And by recalibrating them through the cosmic Omnitrix, we can actively push back against the Chronarch's attempts at forced convergence. Above them, the tower shuddered violently. Dust and small stones rained from the ceiling as the very air seemed to compress with sudden pressure. Temporal assault detected, the cosmic Omnitrix announced. Dimensional barriers weakening. Tempest is attacking the tower itself, Eunice warned, checking readings on her equipment. Attempting to destroy the physical structure to reach the anchor. Ben focused his will through the connection with the anchor, feeling its vast energy reserves respond to his direction. Initiating rejection field, he commanded, the words "Comin'." G instinctively as knowledge flowed between them. Calibrating to Chronarch temporal frequency. The anchor's crystalline components began to rotate around the central core, building speed until they blurred into rings of light. Energy cascaded outward, flowing up through the tower's structure, infusing the ancient stones with dimensional resistance. Outside, Tempest recoiled as the rejection field erupted from the tower in a sphere of expanding force. Where it touched the Herald, its damaged form began to disintegrate further, temporal cohesion failing as it was forcibly ejected from local dimensional space. This changes nothing. Tempest's voice distorted as it fought against the field. The Chronarch will not be denied. With a final surge of defiance, the Herald tore open a portal behind itself. Retreating through the dimensional rift moments before the rejection field would have completely destroyed its form. The Void Architects followed, their fluid bodies dissolving into mist that vanished as the portal sealed. Inside the chamber, Ben maintained his connection with the anchor, ensuring the rejection field stabilized properly. The patterns beneath his skin synchronized perfectly with those flowing through the device, creating a harmonic resonance that strengthened both. Field integrity at 97% and holding, Eunice reported, monitoring the effect. Local dimensional space stabilizing rapidly. We did it, Maya said, her hair tendrils relaxing from their defensive posture for the first time since the battle began. We actually drove them back. Temporarily, Helen cautioned, ever the pragmatist. They'll adapt their approach based on what they've learned from this encounter. Sunny moved closer to Ben, studying the connection between M and the anchor with obvious fascination. So Cousin Benji really is the multiversal chosen one. Grandma Verdona is going to lose her mind when she finds out. Ben carefully disengaged from the anchor. The knowledge fading from his immediate consciousness though not disappearing entirely. I'm not chosen, he corrected, steadying himself against the pedestal. I'm just in the right place at the wrong time. As usual. Speaking of time, Helen interjected, checking her plumber communicator. The rejection field has created a communication window. We should contact plumber headquarters while we can, report what we've learned. As Helen moved to a corner of the chamber to make her report, Eunice approached Ben with scanner in hand. Your biometrics are stabilizing, but that temporal manipulation took a significant toll. You should rest before attempting anything similar. Rest isn't exactly on the agenda, Ben replied, though he didn't resist when Maya guided him to sit on a stone bench along the chamber wall. We still have 4 more anchors to locate and activate. And a team to build, Sunny added unexpectedly, perching beside him with uncharacteristic seriousness. This isn't a 3-person job anymore, Benji. Not if what we're facing is as big as it seems. Maya nodded in agreement, her hair forming contemplative patterns above her head. As much as I hate to admit it, Sparkles is right. We barely survived this encounter, and Tempest wasn't even fighting at full capacity. My name is Sunny, not Sparkles, the Anodite replied, though without real heat. And while we're exchanging information, what's your story anyway? Last I heard, you were some minor villain Ben put away years ago. Maya's expression darkened momentarily. People change. Sometimes because they want to. Sometimes because they have no choice. Her hair tendrils coiled defensively. 3 years ago, my circus family was performing in Madrid when a dimensional breach opened backstage. The Void Architects came through, studying human responses to fear. They experimented on us. The chamber fell silent as the weight of her words registered. Even Sunny's customary flippancy faded before the obvious pain behind the statement. I was the only survivor, Maya continued, voice steady despite the difficult subject. Something about my mutated DNA made me resistant to their tests. When they were finished, they simply left, stepping back through their portal as if they hadn't just destroyed a dozen lives. People I'd known since childhood. Ben reached out, placing his hand on her shoulder. I'm sorry, Maya, I had no idea. She accepted the gesture briefly before straightening, hair tendrils resuming their usual alert patterns. I don't want pity, I want revenge, and saving the multiverse seems like a good place to start. Helen rejoined them, having completed her communication. Plumber headquarters confirms similar dimensional incursions at 17 locations globally. The pattern matches our projections of potential anchor sites. The Chronarch is hunting them systematically, Eunice concluded, attempting to destroy the natural dimensional confluence points. Ben rose to his feet, the cosmic Omnitrix having recovered enough to restore his strength. Then we need to get to the remaining anchors before they do. He looked around at the unlikely group that had formed: former enemy, alien cousin, synthetic lifeform, and Kinesolaran diplomat. Helen, will the plumbers officially sanction this mission now that the threat has been confirmed? The Kinesolaran's tail swished, in a gesture Ben had learned indicated negative response. Unfortunately, no. While Magistratus acknowledges the danger, there's significant disagreement about approach. Some factions believe direct confrontation risks accelerating dimensional collapse. Of course they do. Sunny rolled her eyes. Bureaucracy at its finest. Let's debate while reality unravels. However, Helen continued, ignoring the interruption, I have been granted discretionary authority to monitor the situation, with whatever resources I deem necessary. A slight smile curved her blue features, which I interpret to ink. Lude working with the dimensional nexus point currently residing in Ben Tennyson's arm. Ben couldn't help but smile at her diplomatic phrasing. So officially you're observing, unofficially you're joining the team. Precisely, Helen confirmed. My diplomatic credentials will grant us access to restricted areas likely to contain additional anchors, and my species' natural abilities provide tactical advantages. Plus she's got that whole respectable plumber thing going on, Sunny added with a mischievous grin. Makes a nice balance to my chaos and Medusa's murder hair over there. Maya's air formed a distinctly rude gesture in Sunny's direction, though Ben noticed a hint of amusement beneath her stern expression. Somehow, despite their radically different backgrounds and personalities, a team was forming, forged by common purpose and shared danger. The anchor's showing us the next location, Eunice announced, studying the data flowing across her scanner. Coordinates indicate Egypt, specifically, a previously unexcavated chamber beneath the Great Pyramid. Of course it's a pyramid, Maya sighed, because ancient astronomical tower wasn't cliché enough. Sunny's eyes lit up with genuine excitement. Egypt, I've always wanted to see the pyramids. Supposedly they were designed with help from early Anodite visitors, you know. That theory remains unconfirmed, Helen noted dryly, though her tail twitched with what might have been amusement. But the Great Pyramid does contain several anomalous chambers that defy conventional archaeological explanation. Ben studied the information flowing from the anchor through his connection with the cosmic Omnitrix. The Egyptian anchor appears to be the oldest of the 6, possibly predating human civilization in the region. And potentially the most powerful. Which means the Chronarch will prioritize its destruction, Eunice concluded. We need to move quickly. Helen, can you arrange transportation? Ben asked, already planning their approach. Preferably something with defensive capabilities. The Kinesolaran nodded. Plumber Diplomatic Corps maintains vessels at major European hubs. I can have one ready within the hour. Officially requisitioned for cultural exchange purposes. Good, Ben decided. Eunice, download everything you can from this anchor before we leave. Maya, Sunny, help me secure the perimeter. The rejection field will hold for now, but I want early warning if anything tries to breach it again. As they moved to their assigned tasks with surprising coordination, Ben felt the first genuine optimism since discovering the cosmic Omnitrix. They were still outnumbered and facing an enemy that existed beyond conventional understanding, but they were no longer alone in the fight. The journey to Egypt aboard Helen's requisitioned plumber vessel gave them much-needed time to recover and strategize. The craft, ostensibly designated for diplomatic missions, contained impressive offensive and defensive systems beneath its sleek exterior, along with comfortable accommodations that allowed them to rest in shifts. Ben stood in the ship's observation lounge, watching the Mediterranean pass beneath them. The patterns beneath his skin had stabilized after his connection with the anchor, pulsing with steady rhythm that somehow felt more integrated with his natural biological processes. "Penny for your thoughts," said a voice behind him. "Though I'm guessing they're worth considerably more, what with all that cosmic awareness swimming around in your head." He turned to find Sunny approaching, her usual mischievous expression replaced by something more contemplative. She'd traded her anodite combat suit for casual Earth clothing, jeans and a purple top that still somehow managed to shimmer with subtle energy. "Just processing," Ben replied, turning back to the viewport. "Everything's happening so fast. A week ago I was just regular Ben Tennyson, and now you're multiversal Ben Tennyson," Sunny finished, leaning against the viewport beside him. "Defender of infinite realities, cosmic chosen one, yada yada." Despite everything, Ben found himself smiling at her irreverent summary. Something like that. They stood in companionable silence for a moment, watching clouds drift below. The dynamic between them had shifted since their teenage antagonism, maturing into something approaching mutual respect. Though still flavored with their natural competitive spirit. "Can I ask you something?" Ben finally ventured. "Why did you really come back to Earth?" The Anodites could they sent anyone to investigate the dimensional disturbances. Sunny's luminous eyes studied him with unexpected seriousness. "Would you believe me if I said family loyalty? 5 years ago, no chance. Now," Ben shrugged. "Maybe. People change." "They do," she agreed, a hint of her natural energy dimming briefly. "After I left Earth last time, I went deep into anodite space, trying to connect with that side of myself. Learn things about our species, about the responsibilities that come with manipulating fundamental cosmic energies." She created a small sphere of magenta energy between her fingers, watching it pulse in perfect synchronization with the patterns beneath Ben's skin. "Anodites exist partially outside conventional dimensions, did you know that? It's how we manipulate mana. We see and perceive and interact with the energy flows between realities. So when the dimensional barriers started weakening, we felt it first," Sunny confirmed. "Like a discordant note in a symphony they've been listening to our entire existence." She dissolved the energy sphere with a flick of her wrist. "Most anodites retreated deeper into their own dimension, seeking to preserve themselves. I argued we should intervene directly." Ben studied his cousin with new appreciation. "That doesn't sound like the Sunny I remember." She laughed, the sound carrying harmonics impossible for human vocal cords. "Oh, I'm still me, Benji. Still impulsive, still think most rules are boring suggestions. But I've grown up enough to recognize when the party's about to end for everyone if somebody doesn't step in." From another part of the ship came the sound of raised voices, Maya and Eunice apparently disagreeing about something technical. Sunny's expression shifted to one of curiosity. "Speaking of stepping in," she said, nodding in the direction of the commotion, "what's the story with your new friends?" "The synthetic one I get. Science girl, analytical, probably has a color-coded filing system for her sock drawer. But murder hair, former villain with personal vendetta isn't exactly your usual team material." Ben considered his response carefully. "Maya's earned her place. What happened to her in Madrid, it changed her. Not just physically, but down to her core. She's fighting for redemption as much as revenge. And you trust her?" Sunny pressed, genuine concern beneath the casual question. "I do," Ben replied without hesitation. "She's had multiple opportunities to walk away from this fight, but she's stayed. That counts for something." Sunny seemed satisfied with his answer, though her next question came with a teasing smirk. "And the obvious attraction between you two? That counting for something too?" Ben nearly choked on air. "What? We're not. It's a professional relationship. Please." Sunny rolled her luminous eyes dramatically. "I'm an energy being, cousin. I can literally see the mana connections forming between people. You might not be acting on it, but there's definitely something sparking there." She paused thoughtfully. "With the synthetic one too, actually, though that's got a different flavor. More cerebral." Before Ben could formulate a response to these unexpected observations, the ship's intercom activated. "We're approaching Egyptian airspace," Helen's voice announced. "Everyone to the command deck for final briefing." Saved by the bell, Sunny winked. Pushing off from the viewport, But this conversation isn't over, Benji. Not by a long shot. The command deck buzzed with activity as they gathered around the central holographic display. Eunice and Helen had worked together to compile all available data on the Great Pyramid and its surroundings, creating a detailed three-dimensional model that rotated slowly above the table. According to the anchor's information, we're looking for an entrance in the north face, Helen explained, highlighting a section of the pyramid approximately 20 feet above ground level. Historical wreck. Boards indicate a sealed chamber discovered during 19th century explorations but never properly excavated. Current scans show unusual energy readings consistent with a quantum anchor, Eunice added. Overlaying spectral analysis data on the model. The patterns match what we observed in Germany, though with significantly higher intensity. Maya studied the model with professional interest, her hair forming thoughtful patterns above her head. Security situation. I'm assuming we can't just walk up to one of the world's most famous monuments and start drilling holes. The diplomatic vessel gives us certain advantages. Helen replied, I've arranged permission for an archaeological survey through plumber channels. However, we'll have limited time before Egyptian authorities expect results. And our interdimensional friends? Sunny asked, creating small motes of energy that orbited the holographic pyramid like fireflies. Safe to assume they've got this place on their hit list. Ben nodded grimly. The cosmic Omnitrix is detecting dimensional thinning around the entire Giza plateau. The Chronarch's forces have already begun preparation for incursion. Which means we need to move quickly, Eunice concluded. I've modified our scanning equipment based on what we learned in Germany. We should be able to detect void architects before they fully materialize. Ben studied the tactical situation. The cosmic Omnitrix feeding him probability calculations and strategic options. We'll need to split into two teams, he decided. Helen, you and Eunice will handle the diplomatic front, keeping Egyptian authorities occupied while gaining us official access. Sunny, Maya, and I will locate and secure the anchor. Maya's hair tendrils coiled with anticipation. And when the inevitable dimensional nasties show up, we adapt, Ben replied simply. They've seen some of what we can do, but not everything. We still have surprise on our side. Sunny grinned, magenta energy crackling around her fingers. Plus they haven't faced me at full power yet. Been saving a few anodite tricks for special occasions. The ship descended toward Cairo International Airport, its diplomatic identifiers ensuring priority clearance. By mid-afternoon, they had established their cover operation at the Giza Archaeological Complex, Helen's diplomatic credentials opening doors that would have otherwise remained firmly closed. The Great Pyramid loomed before them, its ancient stones baking in the desert sun. To conventional perception, it appeared exactly as it had for millennia, an enduring monument to human ingenuity and ambition. But through Ben's enhanced awareness, it pulsed with subtle energy patterns, quantum signatures flowing through its structure like liquid light. It's beautiful, he murmured. Seeing the pyramid as it truly was, not just a physical structure but a dimensional confluence point where multiple realities naturally overlapped and reinforced each other. The people who built this had no idea what they were really creating. Or maybe they did, Sunny suggested, her anodite senses clearly perceiving similar patterns. Ancient humans weren't as clueless as modern ones like to think. They just expressed advanced concepts through different frameworks. Less philosophy, more action, Maya interrupted, her hair tendrils subtly scanning their surroundings for threats. The tourist crowds provide good cover, but also lots of potential casualties if things go sideways. Ben nodded, focusing on their immediate mission. Helen's team has created our diversion. Archaeological survey equipment is being set up on the east face, drawing most of the security personnel. We have approximately 30 minutes to locate the entrance and reach the anchor. They moved casually through the crowds of tourists, maintaining the appearance of an unremarkable research team. Ben's transformed arm remained concealed beneath a long-sleeved shirt despite the desert heat, the patterns pulsing more intensely as they approached the north face of the pyramid. There, he said quietly, indicating a section of stonework that appeared identical to the surrounding blocks to normal perception. Through his enhanced awareness, however, it glowed with distinctive energy patterns. That's our entrance. Sunny studied the stone thoughtfully. Sealed with more than just physical materials. There's an energy barrier woven into the molecular structure. Can you disrupt it? Ben asked, keeping watch for security personnel. Please, Sunny replied with characteristic confidence. Enter. GY barriers are basically anodite handshakes. She placed her palm against the stone, magenta light flowing from her fingertips into the ancient material. Just need to introduce myself properly. He stone beneath her hand rippled like water, molecular bonds temporarily reconfiguring. A seam appeared where none had existed before, widening until it revealed a narrow passage leading into darkness. After you, Sunny gestured with a theatrical flourish. They slipped inside quickly, Maya's hair tendrils extending to seal the entrance behind them. The passage beyond was surprisingly well preserved, hieroglyphics and astronomical symbols covering walls that had remained untouched by human hands for millennia. Ben activated the cosmic Omnitrix's natural luminescence, bathing the passage in emerald light. This way, he indicated. Following the strengthening connection he felt to the quantum anchor. The chamber should be directly below the pyramid's central axis. As they descended deeper into the ancient structure, the air grew noticeably cooler and the hieroglyphics more complex, no longer depicting conventional Egyptian imagery but abstract mathematical concepts and dimensional diagrams that would have been incomprehensible to ancient minds. These aren't Egyptian, Maya noted, her hair tendrils tracing the intricate patterns. At least, not entirely. The style is hybridized with something else. Galvan influence. Ben identified, knowledge flowing from the Omnitrix. Early Galvan explorers visited Earth thousands of years ago. They usually avoided direct interference but occasionally shared knowledge with promising civilizations. Sunny studied the symbols with newfound interest. So the pyramids really were built with alien help. Wait until I tell the elders, they Alwa. YS claimed anodites were Earth's only extraterrestrial visitors. The passage eventually opened into a large hexagonal chamber directly beneath the pyramid's center. Unlike the rough-hewn corridors they'd traversed, this space featured perfectly smooth walls covered in flowing scripts that shifted and changed as they watched, not physically moving but existing in multiple potential states simultaneously. At the chamber's center stood a pedestal supporting what was clearly a quantum anchor, though far more elaborate than those they'd encountered previously. This device pulsed with prismatic energy, its crystalline components arranged in a three-dimensional representation of interconnected realities. This is incredible, Ben breathed, approaching the anchor cautiously. The patterns beneath his skin synchronized automatically with those flowing through the device, creating a harmonic resonance that filled the chamber with subtle music. It's not just monitoring dimensional barriers, it's actively reinforcing them across at least 17 adjacent realities. Sunny whistled appreciatively, the sound carrying harmonic overtones. No wonder the Chronarch wants to take this one out. It's like a multiversal support column. Maya's hair tendrils remained in defensive configuration as she surveyed the chamber. Let's secure the perimeter before we get too comfortable. Perfect ambush location. As if summoned by her caution, the air at the chamber's far side rippled ominously. Reality folded inward, creating a distortion through which stepped a familiar silver figure, Tempest, the Chronarch's herald. But unlike their previous encounters, it did not come alone. Flanking it were two new entities unlike the void architects they'd faced before. These beings appeared humanoid but calm, posed of constantly shifting temporal fragments, pieces of different possible versions of themselves overlapping and separating in endless recombination. Where they stepped, reality itself seemed to crack slightly, small fissures appearing in the air around them. Probability nullifiers, the cosmic Omnitrix identified automatically. Chronarch enforcers capable of collapsing quantum potential to a single predetermined outcome. Ben Tennyson, Tempest greeted, its damaged form having partially regenerated since their last encounter. Your persistence across probability streams has been noted with interest. The Chronarch extends an offer of negotiation. Ben positioned himself between the herald and the quantum anchor, Sunny and Maya flanking him in practiced defensive formation. Last time we met, you tried to erase me from reality. Forgive me if I'm skeptical about your boss's negotiating tactics. Tempest inclined its head in what might have been acknowledgement. Previous engagements occurred without complete data regarding your significance. The cosmic Omnitrix's integration with your biological systems represents an unforeseen variable in probability calculations. Get to the point, Maya snapped, her hair tendrils extending into combat readiness. The Chronarch proposes cooperation rather than confrontation, Tempest continued, unperturbed. Your reality will be preserved as the primary template for universal consolidation. Your companions will retain their existence. Your civilization will become the foundation of the singular perfect timeline. Sunny laughed, the sound echoing with anodite harmonics. How generous. He'll only destroy every reality except ours. The multiverse is inefficient, Tempest replied, as if explaining a simple concept to children. Countless versions of the same individuals making marginally different choices, creating probability pollution that weakens the fabric of existence itself. The Chronarch brings elegant simplicity, one perfect timeline where each being follows their optimal path. Ben studied the herald carefully, enhanced perception noting subtle tells in its temporal field. You're stalling, he realized suddenly. This isn't a negotiation, it's a distraction. Quote, Tempest's damaged features arranged themselves into what might have been a smile. Perceptive. While we converse, Chronarch assets are neutralizing the German anchor you recently activated. Simultaneous operations maximize efficiency. You're lying, Ben countered, the cosmic Omnitrix feeding him real-time data. The rejection field is holding. You can't approach it directly. Which is why you're here instead, trying for the anchor we haven't secured yet. For the first time, Tempest's confident demeanor faltered slightly. Probability calculation error. Reassessing tactical approach. Enough talk, Maya declared, her hair suddenly lashing forward in multiple directions simultaneously, targeting both Tempest and its nullifier escorts. The crystalline structures she'd formed during their previous battle now appeared naturally, her control having evolved through practice. The nullifiers reacted with mechanical precision, their fragmented forms blurry as they collapsed probability around Maya's attacks, forcing her tendrils to follow a single trajectory that they easily avoided. Sunny, Ben called out, activating the cosmic Omnitrix. Disrupt their temporal cohesion. On it, she replied, immediately launching waves of specialized anodite energy that interfered with the nullifiers' fragmented existence. Where her energy struck, their Karif. Yuli maintained temporal states began to destabilize, forcing them into more solid, vulnerable forms. Ben completed his transformation, emerald light receding to reveal a form none of them had seen before, a being composed of shifting quantum probability clouds contained within a humanoid shell of crystalline energy. This new alien pulsed with the same patterns as the cosmic Omnitrix, temporal equa. Tions flowing across its surface in endless combinations. Cosmic paradox, he announced, voice resonating at multiple frequencies simultaneously. Let's even the odds. Tempest immediately recognized the greater threat, abandoning its nullifier escorts to engage Ben directly. Transformation exceeds predicted parameters, it observed, temporal energy gathering around its elongated fingers. Containment protocols activated. The Herald launched a concentrated burst of temporal energy designed to accelerate Ben's existence to its final entropy state. But Cosmic Paradox simply shifted probability around himself. The attack passing through a version of him that didn't exist in that particular moment. You manipulate time, Ben observed, his form rippling with quantum potential. I manipulate probability itself, he countered with his own attack. Not energy but focused probability collapse, forcing Tempest into a state where its offensive capabilities were minimized. The Herald struggled against this fundamental constraint, its form fluctuating as it attempted to shift to more advantageous temporal coordinates. Meanwhile, Sunny and Maya worked in surprising harmony against the nullifiers. Sunny's anodite energy disrupted their temporal fragmentation, while Maya's crystalline hair tendrils struck precisely at their moments of greatest vulnerability. The chamber filled with flashes of Aganta light and the crystalline ringing of Maya's attacks. We can't maintain this indefinitely, Sunny called out, visibly straining as she generated increasingly complex energy patterns. Whatever you're planning with the anchor, do it fast. Ben understood the urgency. While his new transformation gave him unprecedented control over quantum probability, even that had limits against beings Daisy. GNED specifically to collapse probability streams. He needed to secure the anchor and activate its rejection field before the Chronarch's forces could adapt to their defense. Maya, he called out, I need 30 seconds with the anchor. You've got it, she replied grimly, her hair suddenly expanding to twice its previous range. Tendrils whipped in complex patterns, forcing the nullifiers to focus entirely on defense rather than offense. Sunny, push them back. The Anodite's eyes flared with intensified power. With pleasure, she brought her hands together, generating a compressed sphere of energy before launching it at the space between the nullifiers. The sphere detonated in a controlled explosion of dimensional force, creating localized reality disruption that momentarily disoriented the temporal beings. Ben seized the opportunity, disengaging from Tempest to reach the quantum anchor. In his cosmic paradox form, he could directly interface with the device's probability mechanics, accessing functionality far beyond what he'd managed with previous anchors. Initiating multi-dimensional rejection field, he commanded, merging his consciousness with the anchor's systems. Calibrating to Chronarch temporal frequency. The anchor responded immediately, its crystalline components reconfiguring into new patterns that hummed with building power. Energy cascaded outward, flowing through the pyramid structure, using the ancient monument's perfect geometric proportions to amplify its effect. Tempest recognized the existential threat, abandoning tactical restraint for desperate assault. Probability nullifiers. Converge on primary target, it commanded, launching itself toward Ben with temporal energy blazing from every surface of its damaged form. Maya intercepted the herald with surprising speed, her hair tendrils wrapping around its limbs while crystalline blades formed at their tips. I don't think so, she growled, using leverage to slam Tempest into the chamber wall. With enough force to crack the ancient stone, Sunny positioned herself between Ben and the nullifiers, hands weaving complex patterns that created a barrier of pure dimensional force. Whatever you're doing, hurry, she called over her shoulder, wincing as the nullifiers began systematically collapsing her probability fields. Connected to the anchor, Ben perceived possibilities beyond normal comprehension, not just this reality but countless adjacent dimensions simultaneously. Through this expanded awareness, he glimpsed something that froze his quantum core, the true nature of the Chronarch. It existed in the spaces between realities, a vast intelligence composed of condensed temporal energy. Not a being in any conventional sense, but a concept that had achieved consciousness, the embodiment of singular determinism. The elimination of choice and possibility in favor of one perfect, unchanging timeline. And it was aware of him now, its attention focusing across dimensions like a cosmic searchlight. Ben Tennyson. A voice echoed directly into his consciousness, bypassing conventional communication entirely. Nexus anomaly. Probability focus. Your resistance introduces inefficiency to perfection's emergence. The voice carried no malice, only absolute certainty, a fundamental force expressing its nature rather than a being making choices. This wasn't an enemy that could be defeated through conventional means. It was an aspect of reality itself attempting to impose its particular pattern on existence. Reality isn't meant to be efficient, Ben responded through the quantum connection. It's meant to be free. Countless possibilities, infinite choices, that's what makes existence meaningful. Inefficient, the Chronarch repeated, its vast consciousness pressing against Ben's. Wasteful. One perfect timeline eliminates suffering caused by wrong choices. One perfect path for each being ensures optimal outcomes. At the cost of free will, Ben countered. At the cost of everything that makes life worth living. The Chronarch's presence intensified, attempting to overwhelm Ben's consciousness through sheer conceptual weight. Your perspective is limited by dimensional constraints. The multiverse is a failed experiment, reality fractured into suboptimal variations. I bring elegant simplification. Ben struggled against the immense pressure, maintaining his connection to the anchor while fighting the Chronarch's influence. And who decides what's optimal? You. Based on what criteria? For the briefest moment, the Chronarch's absolute certainty wavered, a conceptual hesitation rather than an emotional doubt. In that infinitesimal pause, Ben seized his opportunity. Now, he commanded, channeling the full power of cosmic paradox through the ancient anchor. The ice responded with a cascading surge of energy that flowed outward through the pyramid's perfect geometric structure. Each stone, each passage, each chamber had been precisely positioned to create a dimensional amplifier of unprecedented power. The rejection field erupted not just around the pyramid but across the entire Giza plateau, expanding outward at the speed of thought. Where the field touched Tempest and the nullifiers, their forms began to disintegrate, forced out of dimensional alignment with local reality. The herald fought desperately against the effect, its damaged form fluctuating between temporal states as it sought escape. This changes nothing, Tempest insisted, voice distorting as its cohesion failed. The Chronarch transcends dimensional constraints. With a final surge of defiance, it tore open a ragged portal behind itself, retreating through the dimensional rift moments before complete dissolution. The nullifiers weren't as fortunate, their fragmented forms collapsing entirely as the rejection field stripped away their temporal anchoring. As the field stabilized, Ben disconnected from the anchor, reverting to human form in a flash of emerald light. The experience of directly perceiving the Chronarch had left him shaken, his enhanced awareness struggling to process an entity that existed beyond conventional dimensional understanding. Ben. Multi-PLE voices called his name as he swayed unsteadily. Sunny reached him first, supporting him as his knees threatened to buckle. I saw it, he managed, voice hoarse as though he'd been screaming. I saw the Chronarch. It's not what we thought. Maya joined them, her hair tendrils retracting as immediate danger passed. What do you mean? What is it? Not a who, Ben explained, struggling to translate his experience into language they could comprehend. A what? It's like a fundamental force of reality that's achieved consciousness. The embodiment of determinism itself. Sunny's luminous eyes widened with understanding. Like an anodite is to mana, but for temporal determinism instead. A conceptual entity. Exactly, Ben nodded, strength gradually returning. It doesn't hate or destroy out of malice. It's simply expressing its fundamental nature, trying to reduce all possibility to a single, perfect, timeline because that's literally what it is. Which means reasoning with it is pointless, Maya concluded grimly. You can't persuade gravity not to pull things downward. Ben straightened, looking at the quantum anchor with new appreciation. Maybe not, but we can create opposing force. These anchors don't just stabilize dimensional barriers, they're focal points for the opposing concept, possibility, choice, free will. The eternal cosmic battle, Sunny murmured, uncharacteristically philosophical. Determinism versus free choice, playing out on a multiversal scale. The chamber shuddered suddenly, dust raining from the ceiling as the pyramid adjusted to the enormous energy release. The quantum anchor continued functioning perfectly, but the structure around them had been stressed by channeling such power. We should go, Maya suggested, her hair tendrils extending to check the stability of the passage they'd entered through. Before we get buried in humanity's most famous tomb. They made their way quickly back through the ancient corridors, the hieroglyphics now glowing faintly with residual energy from the anchor's activation. As they neared the exit, Ben's communicator activated. Ben, come in. Eunice's voice came through urgently. Something's happening at the pyramid. We know, he replied, helping Sunny navigate a partially collapsed section of passage. We've activated the anchor. The rejection field is operational. That's not what I mean, Eunice corrected. The pyramid is changing. On a quantum level, our instruments are registering structural modifications throughout the entire complex. They reached the entrance they'd used, Sunny Key. CKLY reconfiguring the molecular structure to allow their exit. As they emerged onto the pyramid's north face, they understood immediately what Eunice meant. The Great Pyramid appeared unchanged to conventional perception, still the same ancient monument tourists had photographed for decades. But through Ben's enhanced awareness, its true nature now stood revealed, a massive dimensional stabilizer. Its perfect geometric proportions creating harmonic resonance patterns that reinforced reality itself. More significantly, these patterns were now visible to normal human perception, subtle geometric light flowing across the stone surface. Mathematical equations manifesting briefly before fading back into the structure. Tourists pointed and exclaimed in amazement, many recording the phenomenon on their devices. The veil's thinning, Sunny observed, her anodite senses fully engaged. The rejection field didn't just push out the Chronarch's forces, it's making the dimensional mechanics visible to ordinary perception. Helen and Eunice reached them moments later, the Kinesolaran having transported her synthetic colleague at high speed through the gathering crowds. We need to contain this, Helen stated immediately. Professional concern evident in her tone. Mass awareness of interdimensional mechanics could create panic. I'm not sure we can contain it, Ben replied, studying the flowing patterns with his enhanced perception. Or that we should. The Chronarch thrives on ignorance, on people not understanding the choices that shape reality. Besides, Sunny added with characteristic flippancy, humans will rationalize it away by tomorrow. Light show at the pyramids. Must be new tourism promotion. Despite the gravity of the situation, Ben found himself smiling at her assessment. She's probably right. Humanity has an amazing capacity to explain away the extraordinary. Maya's hair tendrils formed complex patterns that mimic the flowing energy across the pyramid. What matters is that we've secured another anchor. 2 down, 4 to go. Eunice consulted her scanner, which now displayed new information flowing from the activated anchor. The next coordinates are coming through now. It's the Nazca Lines in Peru. Another ancient site with apparent astronomical significance. Makes sense, Ben nodded, the cosmic Omnitrix feeding him relevant knowledge. The lines were created to be seen from above, markers for aerial travelers, but not necessarily human ones. Helen's tail swished thoughtfully. The Plummer Historical Archives contain references to extraterrestrial visitation in that region. Primarily peaceful scientific expeditions rather than colonization attempts. So our ancient quantum anchor collection tour continues, Maya summarized dryly. From Europe to Africa to South America, the anchor network was designed to cover the entire planet, Ben explained, knowledge flowing from his connection to the devices. Each positioned at natural confluence points where dimensional barriers are naturally thinnest. Which means our final destinations will likely include Asia, Australia, and possibly Antarctica, Eunice concluded, already calculating logistics. We should move quickly. The Chronarch will adapt its approach based on our success here. As they made their way back through the gathering crowds toward their transport, Ben noticed Maya walking slightly apart from the group. Her expression troubled beneath her customary stoic exterior. He fell back to join her, concerned by the uncharacteristic withdrawal. Everything okay? He asked quietly. Her hair tendrils formed small defensive patterns that betrayed her discomfort. Just processing. This is bigger than I expected when I broke into Plummer headquarters looking for answers about Madrid. Having second thoughts about joining the Save the Multiverse team? Ben asked, keeping his tone light despite genuine concern. Maya shook her head, her expression resolving into determined focus. No, just the opposite. For 3 years, I've wanted nothing but revenge against the beings who destroyed my family. Now I'm facing something so much larger than that, a cosmic force that doesn't even register human suffering as significant. And that changes things for you. It gives context, she replied after a thoughtful pause. My pain, my loss, it's just one tiny thread in a multiversal tapestry. That should make it feel smaller, less important. Her hair tendrils formed a complex pattern that somehow conveyed melancholy. Instead, it makes every thread matter more. If we lose this fight, it's not just my story that gets erased. It's everyone's. Ben nodded, understanding completely. That's why we fight. Not just for grand cosmic principles, but for every individual store. Why that deserves to unfold according to its own choices. Maya studied him with newfound appreciation. You've changed too, you know. The Ben Tennyson I remember would have made a joke about saving the day being Tuesday for him. Well, he smiled, the patterns beneath his skin pulsing with steady rhythm. It is Tuesday. Her unexpected laugh drew curious glances from the others ahead of them, a ND of genuine amusement that seemed to surprise Maya herself. One of her hair tendrils briefly touched Ben's shoulder in a gesture that conveyed more than words could have. As they rejoined the group, Ben felt a subtle shift in team dynamics, connections forming not just through necessity but through genuine understanding and shared purpose. Sunny caught his eye with a knowing smirk that he studiously ignored. While Helen and Eunice seamlessly incorporated them back into the tactical discussion about their next destination. The ancient pyramid continued its subtle light show behind them, diamonds. Ional energies flowing through stone that had stood for millennia. Ben glanced back once, enhanced perception allowing him to see beyond the physical structure to the quantum anchor at its heart, a beacon of possibility shining across realities, maintaining the precious freedom of choice against forces that would collapse all potential to a single determined path. 2 anchors secured, 4 remain. The battle for reality's fundamental nature had only begun. But for the first time since discovering the cosmic Omnitrix, Ben felt genuine hope. Not just because of the power at his disposal, but because of the team forming around him, each bringing unique strengths and perspectives to a fight that transcended individual concerns. As they boarded the transport that would take them to their next destination, the cosmic Omnitrix pulsed with something that felt remarkably like satisfaction. Whatever the Chronarch represented, whatever conceptual force it embodied, it would face not just opposite on but diversity, the very quality it sought to eliminate. And in that diversity, Ben suspected, they would find their ultimate strength. Blank, _ blank. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.